It's the boy Blackbeard, Mirage, I'm back. What's happening? And you tuned in for another Mirage Classic. And into this tape, we're going to go over some occult science, all right, some higher occult science, go over some metaphysical concepts so you all can have a greater understanding and put behind the dogma that has been put into the minds of our people via propaganda and also via people who just don't really know the information and haven't done deeper enough research. What we're going to do in this tape is we're going to talk about the science of death, or we're going to talk about subatomic melanin or dark matter energy, and we're going to talk about the biosemiotics in ancient Egyptian mythos, okay? And we're going to also talk about spiritual biology or biology as well. And we're going to kind of just go into what is this melanin really on a quantum level. You've always, heard me use the word quantum, subconscious, subatomic, or even melanin. And this is taking us into the, we'll say, different aspects or different phases of our being. So that's what this tape is going to be. We're going to go into some biology, and we're going to show how the Egyptian mystery system, the Incan mystery system, or what we call Moorish magic or Moorish science, how a lot of this was actually encoded in you all's curriculums in school. So these symbols in the Egyptian mystery system that we're going to go into now actually show up in your astrology. They show up in your biology. They show up in your psychology. They show up in your sociology, etc., or basically the different areas of so-called academia. So that's what these old ancient universities were really about. They just, took the sciences and they made them composite, So they would make a mythos and they would include the biology, the astrology, etc. of one particular science. And after I read, what I'm reading, you'll get a greater understanding of what I'm talking about. So the source I'm coming out of is called Biosemiotics in Ancient Egyptian Text by Judy K. King, Volume 3. It's called Biosemiotics in Ancient Egyptian Text, the key to long lost signs found in myth, religion, psychology, art, and literature. The key to long lost signs found in myth, religion, psychology, art, and literature. Because like I said, these symbols are occult and esoteric in nature. And we got to start doing some, deeper thinking to understand what the real meanings of these signs are. And once again, this was made by Judy K. King, Volume 3. So if you want to know my source, you're going to have to rewind and get it over. So let me go into the reading. So the abstract. Biosemiotics is biology interpreted as sign systems. That is, the sign is a fundamental biological unit, such as a protein or molecule. A broad study of 8 ancient Egyptian texts spanning 2,000 years reveals that over 870 decoded signs exhibit a unified matrix of ancient Egyptian science that mirrors modern scientific knowledge. The pharaohs were aware of bacterial genetics, space physics, quantum physics, and molecular biology, including recent research in cosmology related to string theory, black hole theory, and dark energy, aka melanin, all right? The clever monarchs veiled their impressive scientific knowledge in a religious literature of double signified signs and symbols with related artwork. That's what we call the occult or esoteric, the hidden. And you had to be initiated to understand what the symbols really meant. This decoded scientific system not only maps an actual chemical reaction pathway, but it also provides the key to signs found in the ancient myths of Sumer, Babylonia, India, and Greece, also ancient America. Further, the massed Egyptian knowledge shows that religious themes such as the dying, rising god and virgin birth model the genetic activity of a complex virus called bacteriophage lambda. Related to the full scientific focus of the funerary text studied, Albrecht Dürer's mystifying engraving Melancholia 1 and William Blake's aborted masterpiece The Four Zoas are elucidated. This research into ancient Egyptian texts and modern science is called the Isis thesis and reveals an elaborate biological sign system as the origin of the work of art. So what we're going into is we're going into these occult symbols that the people of Ta-Meri, the Aboriginal people of Ta-Meri, the old world, and how they would encode their, science in mythos, religion, psychology, art, and literature, as it says right here. The pharaohs were aware of bacterial genetics, space physics, quantum physics, and molecular biology, including recent research in cosmology related to string theory, black holes, and dark energy. So all this is really just the behavior and the mechanisms of matter, of melanin rather, subatomic matter, all right? So that's ultimately what we're talking about. Biosemiotics, which is biology interpreted as sign systems. That is, the sign is a fundamental biological unit, such as a protein or a molecule. So when you look into Kabbalah and when you look into the Egyptian so-called hieroglyphic, this is essentially what it is. That's why when people try to make a language out of it, it doesn't really make sense, because it's giving you multiplicities of meanings, all right? All right. Biosemiotics is a transdisciplinary and information science. The domain of biosemiotics is the tiny quantum world of the cell, proteins, and molecular processes. So this is what we mean by the quantum universe or universe B. Its purpose is to provide humans with information about the origin of life and the activity of nature for more intelligent adaptation in the universe. That's the whole purpose of the occult, to reveal the hidden to humans. Biosemiotics is a new direction for the humanities in light of a recent study called the Isis thesis, put out by King in 2004, spanning a time period of 2520 BC to 664 BC. This broad study of 8 ancient Egyptian texts, which were the pyramid texts, the coffin texts, the Amduat, Book of Gates, Book of Two Ways, Edifice of Taharka, and the Book of the Dead, including the Theban recension, reveals an elaborate biological science system divining the cosmogenesis of our universe, the origin of life, and the autopoietic design for human evolvability. That unlocks meaning across disciplines, So what that is kind of just reinforcing what I said about the ancient Egyptian text talking about really biology, but it was encoded and you had to be initiated to understand what the symbols really meant. Let me fast forward to my next part here real quick. All right. The decoded Egyptian worldview supports a unique philosophy of mind where the transcendent becomes continually immanent in the material world. And hold on real quick. Fragments of this confusing world view surfaced in Western philosophy, a discursive formation that strolled naked with little practical meaning in the 20th century due to speculative reason, diluted Western philosophy from Plato to Nietzsche, split into psychology, sociology, anthropology, and other humanistic sciences. But the Eastern philosophic tradition, specifically the Upanishads, stretched beyond reason and corroborated the Egyptian transformation paths. Heidegger was also beyond reason, beyond philosophy, and beyond ethics. In his Origin of the Work of Art, he explains that humans can achieve their full potential by passage into a lighting center to those beings that we ourselves are not, and access to the being that we ourselves are. The self-transcendent element in Heidegger's thought is not only his grasp of pre-ontological understanding that included an attunement before nothing. Anyway, I'm just kind of fast forward that. I want to go to the pharaohs part. Excuse me about that. Here we go right here. As the pharaohs understood and modern scientists believe, our universe has a holographic model. So a lot of y'all have heard about the whole holographic universe thing and stuff like that. It says, in other words, we are the material hologram, the illusion. Because of this, theories of immanent materialism are insubstantiable to explain the patterns accessed by the thinking of creative artists. Ontology now comes down to an acasual time reverse order in nature, a movement to the real holograph or source. which is best described by biosemiotics and scientific research. So what this is talking about is you will hear the Egyptians and different ancient people who understand the mystery system say things like as above, so below, as within, so without. What that is talking about the duality universe, or basically that we are an outward projection of something going in on the inside. So just kind of think back on that Lucifer tape when I was talking about the shadow, and I was talking about the different reflections that really you see going on down here on Earth, but they're just projections out of what's going on in the quantum universe, what we call so-called the spirit world. All right, so that's what this is, and it's talking about how all this that we see going on in the material universe is being projected out from the quantum world, or the cell, what they call. Now, we all know in biology they have the cell, which contains the cell membrane, the nucleus, etc. All the different genetic material, etc. So now let's go into what some of these ancient Egyptian symbols mean, because in the story, when you hear about Set fighting Horus, this really is talking about two different proteins fighting over, let's say, control over the DNA. All right, but I'll go into that in a minute. In the least corrupted funerary text, the pyramid text and coffin text, biological concepts are embedded in a religious narrative detailing the afterlife adventures of the dead king who desires eternity and transformation, or transfiguration. In this magical process of recreation, the dead king becomes a god. He does not die again or go upside down, and he is not seized by the earth gods. However, to obtain this desired state, the dead king must follow specific directions using the earth and stars as guides. By following the advice in the funerary text, the king to be transformed joins the sun god Ra's ferry boat for the voyage through the black netherworld of the Duat and overcomes the monster serpent Apophis. Isis, the lady of provisions, and Thoth, the scribe of the gods, assist the dead king in his journey through the black Duat. The dead king judges the two brothers, Horus and Set, who compete for the throne of their father Osiris. When Set wins the throne, Osiris dies. When Horus controls the throne, Osiris rises from the dead with the help of Isis, who breathes life into him and conceives the child Horus by virgin birth. The rivals are then reunited, resulting in the restoration of the Eye of Horus, along with the birth of the dead king's new form, the Horus child, which is nourished by Isis and rising in the east. In the Book of Two Ways text 1099, the dead king states, "I established millions." So what that went into real quick is how you all know about the story of Osiris having the quarrels with Set, and then Set kills Osiris. Then Isis has to go through this basically magical ritual with the help of Thoth to restore the phallus of Osiris. Then Osiris is restored via Heru. Heru battles Set and defeats Set. And that is essentially what the core of the Egyptian mythology is. But as this just told you all, and as you're going to see in a minute, that Horus and Set represent certain proteins, and Osiris represents a certain stage of genetic material or subatomic material in its prior state of transforming into something, okay, and in its dead state. That's what Osiris represents. So when we talk about the pyramid text and the coffin text and these funerary texts, these texts have nothing to do with, how to mummify somebody's body. That is the exoteric understanding of it. That is the person who has not been initiated. What it really is talking about is how the human being can transform into a god by death, by going upside down into the Klepoth, or known as the Menta, by going through the transformation process in the abyss through the realm of darkness, or also known as the Duat, and then rising out of that. That is also the transformation process that you hear about with Christ, when it says that Christ goes into hell. A lot of people don't really talk about that when Yeshua actually goes into the gates of hell and frees all the souls in hell and rises out of hell. A good example of that would be in the cartoon Disney version of Hercules. Now, anybody who has seen that, because once again, Hercules is also Heru, and he has to help his father raise from the dead. But in this story, it was the woman who was representing who Hercules was raising. But if you can remember in the Disney version, when Hercules went to hell, he had to basically swim in the river Styx, and he only had a certain amount of time to save the soul or the etheric body of his female half. And while he was swimming in it, he was about to have his life taken because there was these three witches who represent another form of Set, another type of protein. But they were about to cut this string that was going to take Hercules' life. But of course it didn't happen because he rose out of there and then he eventually defeated Hades. So this is the same mythology, and no matter what culture you read it in, essentially what it is talking about is when the cell dies and then the genetic material of the cell can transform into something new. And then you have these different proteins that are fighting over what they want to do with that particular genetic material. So a lot of this is in biology. You know, I guess a homework assignment would be to, you know, get you a biology book and read over some of these concepts about the cell membrane, about the nucleus, about, you know, just all these different parts of the subatomic world, because that's where everything is coming from. You know, even if you have some type of sickness or disease, mentally, emotionally, or even physically, they all are being projected from the subatomic world. So that's why they say usually, you know, watch your thoughts and watch how you feel and stuff like that, because that stuff has an effect on you physiologically through your subatomic. You know, so these different chemicals and proteins and hormones in your body, these are also the different symbols in the Egyptian mythos, okay, or the Aboriginal mythos. So, you know, when you think in a certain way, that means that the Sethian protein probably could take over more. But that Sethian protein is one that actually disintegrates and it causes things to get ready to be broken down into its fertile state. That's why when you look up Set, he's also associated with fertilizer a lot of the time, or also known as shit, because another name for him is soot, all right, or soot or Seth, okay, as well. And this is no different than the black carbon that you see, or the black, you know, smudge that you see that actually emits off of light, like in your fireplace. That's why it's a lot of black fire and charcoal and things like that around your fireplace. That represents the smut or the Set or the Satan or the Saturn. It represents the dark melanated primordial matter that is about to be transformed into something new. So that's why Set is associated with feces or so-called fertilizer. Because think about how you may have a horse or cows or something, and they, you know, use the bathroom in the fields, and how this regenerates the soil, and how the grass starts growing to be much greener and much healthy, because essentially, you know, the raw life force that was remaining within the excrement was transformed to the soil. Okay, so this is all also going on inside your body. You know, when I talk about the occultism, when I talk about esoteric, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that are going on in your subatomic world and in your biology. I'm talking about things going on in your physiology. I'm talking about things going on in your psychology, etc. But our ancestors were so clever that they hid all this stuff in what you all call literature. And that's what they do today in what you all call movies. Okay? So all these movies you see are basically visual interpretations of what I'm sitting here talking about and reading. And that's how you do it. So a true occultist or a true hierophant or a true magi is one that can express what's going on in the subatomic world in a very, very creative and artistic way. For example, the way I do that is with my tapes, and also I'm into writing books and literature. I've already published one and put that one out there, but I have another one I'm working on that is basically a little secret. It's going to be a little treat for the people, you know, so I'm just throwing that little jewel out there. But I got another book I'm working on that's going to be a composite of what we've been dealing with. So in order for me to get you to understand higher advanced concepts, I will hide it and encode it in different symbols. You know, so I just kind of operate how our ancestors did. You know, that's how they did things. It's the most creative way to do things in symbols. That's how the subconscious mind works, in symbols. Biosemiotics in ancient Egyptian texts. The following core statements from the Isis theory illuminate Egyptian biosemiotics, detailing the dynamics of two different DNA texts generated from the left and right arms of the Lamda genome, one evolving from virus to human, and to the transforming from human to viral. So that means from the realm of death to the realm of life, and then from the realm of life to the realm of death. The latter text is possible because of the first law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, yet energy undergoes transformations in nature, that is, from heat to work and from chemical potential to light. Now that's very, very important. So keep up, because when we talk about Seth or Set or Satan, and we talk about Yeshua or Heru, we're talking about two different type of chemical processes as well. While Heru is known as the luminescence, or known as the chemical light. All right, now that'll make sense in a minute. So real quick, I'm gonna go over a few symbols and kind of tell you what they really mean. So the lambda genome on the left arm, then you have the lambda genome on the right arm. All right, so we're talking about, once again, the different components of the DNA and the genetic material. So you have the viral human DNA text, and then on this left hand side you have the left eye of Seth, matter and life, space-time or our universe, the hologram, photosynthesis, sexual genesis, CI protein, Seth, Osiris dead, or lambda dormant. So also when you talk about Osiris being dead, that is basically dormant DNA or dormant genetic material. So you know how they talk about, that only, let's say, 3% of the so-called human DNA is unlocked, and there's like another 97% that's sleep, or they'll say that we only use 10% of our brain and the other 90% is sleep. That sleep state is known as the Osiris dead, or also known as dormant lambda or lambda dormant. All right. And that is what you get when you hear the mythos of Saturn falling. Okay. So when they talk about the fall of Saturn, they're talking about dormant DNA. And a lot of melanated Aboriginal people right now are activating like they have dormant DNA. On the right hand side, you have human to viral DNA. So I just explained to you the process when from the realm of death to the realm of the human. But now from the realm of human to the realm of death, it goes like this. On the right hand side, you have the right eye of Horus. You have energy into the universe. You have force particles, quantum particles, the dual universe, the holograph, the Egyptian idea of walking upright. So that means rising out of the dead. Then you have the Egyptian idea of being upside down, which is dying and going into a mental. So this is also why I think it was the crucifixion of one of the people in the New Testament. I don't think it was John. It was somebody, or it may have been Paul, but somebody that was hung upside down. You have a story of a person that was hung upside down in the Bible. I can't remember who, but that is an occult symbol showing you that this is the lambda genome on the left hand side, showing you the upside down world. All right. And then also on the eye of Horus on the right hand side, you have basically chemical luminescence. All right, and I'll explain more what that is in the minute. So now I need to go into the holographic universe. Our universe has a holographic mode of operation. According to modern science and Egyptian biosemiotics, our space-time universe is a large black hole and also a hologram that is an invertible reflection of the hologram or holograph or quantum world of particles. Let me repeat. According to modern science and Egyptian biosemiotics, because all modern science comes from the ancient universities, all right? Our space-time universe is a large black hole and also a hologram that is an invertible reflection of the holograph or quantum world of particles. This is supported by eye research, for the image on the retina is inverted. Inversion imagery is evident in the Egyptian text, where the deceased refers to our space-time world as upside down, while existing in an afterlife called the regions of dwarfs, the quantum world of particles. You also see this show up in the tragic comedy of Dante's Inferno, because Dante's Inferno is the same exact story of the dying god and then ascending up. Because if you look at that story, when he got to the most inner part of hell, he actually ended being upside down. They also had that in a movie called, what was the name of that movie? It was a movie in Paris about an upside down world, long story short. And it was like the Knights Templars, and there was these people trying to find this treasure of the Knights Templars, this alchemical substance rather. And they had to go through these ninth inner worlds of hell, and then they ended up coming upside down, you see. So this is the whole process of being upside down. Also, the realm of the ancestor or the afterlife is the region of the dwarfs. Now, when we think of the dwarfs and you think of these fairies and all these other little small creatures that you see, This is the realm of the inner universe, or the quantum universe, also known as the subatomic world. So this is why you heard the brother Bobby Hemmett and other people say that your ancestor lives inside of you, because they live in a quantum subatomic world within the genetic cell, because that is the true universe. It's like also on Men in Black, when they had this little dog, and around the dog's collar he had this little world that was inside this little ball, but it was this small world. You see what I'm saying? This is representing the quantum universe. All right. Both neurophysiologist Carl Pilgrim and physicist David Bohm support the holographic paradigm. After 50 years of brain research, Pilgrim holonomic theory summarizes evidence that the retinal image is transformed to a holographic or spectral domain. The concept of spectral domain includes the ideas that colors, tones, and all exteroceptive sensations, including those dependent on spatio-temporal configurations, that is, shapes of surfaces and forms, can be analyzed into their component frequencies of oscillation. Our familiar space-time lies on one side of the transform, with distributed and folded holographic-like order on the other side. So what this is saying is that we are only living in the material form of the universe. But subatomically, there is a whole nother universe going on in the upside down world. So that is why you have on the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the upside down world and the upright world. All right. Like it said, the Egyptians had two forms of belief. They had the person walking upright and the person upside down. Let me show you what I mean by that. So real quick, we have the tree of life, you know what I'm saying, which is also giving us an understanding of the universe and the subatomic world. So down here is the upside down universe, as I have right here, known as the Klepoth, or the dark side of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is where Adam and Eve were sent after they actually ate from that fruit. They got true knowledge of both life and death. Okay, that is the Klepoth. That is the upright world right there. Okay, so this is where we are right now. That is where you go through death. And then when you come back through life, you come from the realm of death and then to the realm of life. Right here, you have something known as Daath, which is like a wormhole that can send you from this universe straight to this universe. And these are the different pathways of the tree of life. All right. So I just wanted to show you real quick what I meant and just show you the connection between the Kabbalistic or the Hebrew Phoenician mystery Moorish system and the Ta-Meri so-called Egyptian mystery system. So continuing on. So it says that the pharaohs were well aware of this inversion process. The deceased believed that to be upside down is my detestation. So this is also bringing you into why, you know, when you look at the so-called Egyptian, and it seemed like they were fascinated with the realm of death or the realm of being deceased, because they knew that through that dark quantum melanin universal transformation through the abyss of Amenta, that they could become a god and there will be no more death, you see. So that is what that is ultimately talking about. All right. Now I want to continue to talk about the war between brothers or proteins. Now this is very important because this is going to help you understand where so-called discrimination or racism comes from. A lot of these behaviors and a lot of the psychological and emotional functions you see in human beings are coming from the type of hormonal, their type of genetic material, and the type of subatomic activity that they have going on inside of them. And also the certain protein material that's going on inside of them. And although everybody on this planet, is, walking with 2 legs, 2 arms, etc., and although we are all in the humanoid shape, when it comes to certain proteins and certain chemical interaction and certain chemical functions inside of us, it's very, very different. Okay. So when people say that, we are all the same, really all they mean is we all have 2 legs, 2 arms, a head. But they don't mean that we're the same on a quantum intergenetic world. It's very, very obvious that not all of us are the same. For example, I don't really drink any kind of like milk. I never really have. The only kind of milk I can really drink is almond milk. Okay, almond milk. I can remember back when I was, man, I had to have been maybe 4 or 5 years old, but I remember my mother made some pancakes one time, and she used some whole milk, and I remember that shit fucked my stomach up bad. You know what I'm saying? That whole milk, it fucked it up bad. That was when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I've never really drank the that type of milk. I've only had like the almond milk and stuff like that. So clearly that means going on inside of my body, there is a chemical particular type of configuration that interacts with lactose products a certain way. You know what I'm saying? Whereas you may have somebody else out here that can drink whole milk in their cereal and in their pancakes and in their oatmeal, and it doesn't bother them the same way that it may bother me. That's how that goes. You see what I'm saying? I'll give you another example. Let's take certain type of diets. Like I can remember when I met the two guys I met from Syria and Afghanistan. They was telling me how, you know, they have a certain type of diet over there where it mainly consists of more type of like rice and things of that type of nature. You see, this is coming from a certain type of chemical process going on inside of their body from what they're used to eating and probably what their body needs to eat, something that's a little more fit for them. Also, it's no different too that when you deal with so-called Aboriginal people or Moorish Autochthonous people, where in a lot of our religious mythos that our ancestor encoded that you need to stay away from the pig and stay away from eating the pig. That had a lot to do with what I'm sitting here talking about, certain chemical reactions that don't interact right with certain type of blood and certain type of hormonal fluids you have been going on inside of you. So on a more esoteric point of view, now you can understand when they talk about Yeshua casting the demons inside of the pigs and stuff like that. Or they talk about Seth transforming into a wild boar sometimes. You see, so a lot of these are talking about, like I said, they're talking about chemical functions inside the human body. And this is where you get the battle between the so-called white man and the so-called black man. We are two chemically different type of beings. And we have two different proteins that are operating over genetic material at this moment right now. If that wasn't the case, then we'd be the same being. Like Caucasian people got to really ask themselves, if Aboriginal people and majority of the planet have that copper colored look, and although our hair texture and certain things may be a little different, you got to ask yourself, like, why are y'all looking so different? Like, how are you all so different? So don't come to me saying, I don't want to hear that we are all one shit. I'm sorry, Blackbeard ain't with that one. You know, you all are a different type of people. Like, that don't mean I got the right to disrespect you. That don't mean I have the right to, let's say, treat you a certain way. But that don't mean I'm going to say that you what I am. Clearly you're not. You know what I'm saying? We have two totally different type of activities going on in our genetic world, in our subatomic world. You know, just for the mere fact that we have the surface melanin difference. Like, you got to understand that is a biological thing. Nobody really has control over that. But let me read to you the war between the brothers. The recurring theme of warring brothers or twins is a sign for two lambda proteins struggling for genetic control over vegetation replication. Seth is the sign for phage lambda Ci or C1 protein, and his brother Horus is the sign for phage lambda crow protein. The DNA text for our space-time biosphere expresses itself as matter due to Ci protein control of the phage lambda genome. The DNA text for a quantum universal communicative network expresses itself as energy due to crow protein control of the phage lambda genome. As an Egyptian pharaoh might say, viral proteins made us what we are today, the Ci, which is Seth, and what we may become tomorrow, the crow, which is Heru. Besides proteins, the competition between brothers also signifies the competition between two chemical reactions, photosynthesis and chemical luminescence. So like I said, you know, this shit is much deeper than we think. Like, there are certain subatomic particles and certain protein battles going on within us. And that is what's leading us to be different. So this is why some of us are children of Heru and some of us are children of Set. You know what I'm saying? Some of us are in the process of illuminating and transforming into something new. And some of us are in the process of deteriorating and basically breaking down things. These are the different polarities of energies and why certain people on the planet are the way they are, you know. So this has nothing to do with racism. This all has to do with basically genetics. This whole thing is about genetics. And salute to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, because she was giving y'all quantum science, but a lot of us didn't even catch on to it. So this tape would be dedicated to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, because she told us a long time ago that it was a genetic warfare, and she was right. That's why they got y'all swirling now and doing all that interracial thing, because they trying to hop into your genetic pool. So all y'all that have swirled or, have done whatever it is you all have done, I hope you understand really what you're doing and what you're mixing your DNA with, really. I'm not saying y'all can't do what y'all want to do, but, and that go for the men too. Like, understand what you're really doing. Like, just understand it. That's why they say know thyself. But it's the boy Blackbeard, man. I want to drop this shit. Happy Valentine's Day to all the single beautiful ladies out there, but stay tuned. I'm out.